So what's the most important relationship in your life? I mean, really think about it. What if it's the one we barely even notice? Today we're going to dive deep into that connection, the often invisible, but absolutely critical link between our society and the natural world that makes everything else possible.
This right here is the heart of it all. It's this fundamental truth that we aren't just living in nature, we are a part of it. Think about the coffee you had this morning, or the electricity that's powering your screen right now. Every single piece of our modern lives is pulled directly from the earth, and every choice we make leaves some kind of footprint.
All right, so here's our game plan. First, we'll look at the problem as it stands today. Then, we're going to hit rewind and see how in the world we got here. After that, we'll pop the hood and look at the economic engine that's driving this whole thing. We'll then explore the political tools we're using to try and fix it, and we'll wrap up by asking a really big question. Are we even aiming for the right goal? Okay, let's start with the big idea itself, the human-nature nexus. I know, it sounds a little academic, but trust me, it's a simple and incredibly powerful concept.
The best way to think about it is not as two separate things, but more like a single, giant, interwoven fabric. Our societies are constantly drawing threads, our food, our energy, our materials from the environment. And every single thing we do, every action we take, pulls on those threads, and that changes the pattern of the entire cloth.
And when that fabric starts to fray, these are the symptoms we see. Now, the really crucial thing to get here is that these aren't a bunch of separate fires we need to put out. No, they're all connected. They're all being fed by the same source. You can't really solve climate change without dealing with pollution, and you can't fix biodiversity loss without tackling how we use our resources. It's all one big interconnected crisis.
If you need just one number to really wrap your head around the scale of the change we're talking about, this is it. For pretty much the entire history of our species, and way, way before that, CO2 levels in the atmosphere were never this high. We are living in a completely new atmospheric reality, one that we literally created in just the last couple of centuries.
So, how do we get here? Right. This didn't happen overnight. To really understand what's happening now, we have to trace our relationship with nature all the way back.
For almost all of human history, we lived within the rhythms of nature. The agricultural revolution was that first big shift. We started to bend the landscape to our will. But the real game changer, the moment we put that whole process on steroids, was the Industrial Revolution. Suddenly, with fossil fuels, nature stopped being a partner and started looking more like a warehouse of stuff just waiting to be used up.
And this incredible acceleration isn't just history. It's being powered by an engine that's still running full tilt today, our modern economic system. If we want to understand the environmental crisis, we have to understand how our economy thinks.
See, our modern economy basically runs on two simple, but let's be honest, pretty dangerous assumptions. Number one, the Earth has an infinite supply of resources for us to take. And number two, the pollution we create is basically free. It's someone else's problem, an externality that doesn't need a price tag.
And this is not some abstract theory, right? Endless extraction looks like this in the real world. Literally blowing the tops off of mountains for coal, using insane amounts of water in deserts to get lithium for our batteries, clear-cutting ancient forests for lumber, and just emptying our oceans of fish. These are the real-world consequences of that economic idea.
And this gets us to that second assumption, free pollution. The fancy economic term is an externality, which is really just a hidden cost. When a factory pollutes a river, the price of whatever it's making doesn't include the cost of a ruined ecosystem or the healthcare problems that people downstream might get. That cost gets pushed onto all of us. It's taken right off the company's balance sheet.
Let's break this down even more. On one side, you have internal costs, things like labor and materials. The producer pays for those, and they're baked into the price of the product. But then you have the external costs, like healthcare bills from air pollution. Those are paid by us, by society. One directly hits the company's bottom line, the other hits our collective health and well-being.
So if our economic system has these massive blind spots, how do we correct for them? Well, this is where politics and policy are supposed to step in. This is our attempt to manage our impact and actually account for all those hidden costs.
When it comes down to it, governments basically have two main tools in their toolbox. First, there's command and control. It's like a strict rule. You must install this filter on your smokestack. It's direct, it's clear, but it can be a little rigid. The other approach is market-based. This is more like a price signal. The government says, hey, polluting is now expensive, so you figure out the cheapest way to stop. It uses financial incentives, like a carbon tax, to get companies to innovate.
A classic market-based tool is something called cap and trade.
Here's how it works, real quick. Step 1, the government sets a hard limit, a cap, on total pollution. Step 2, it gives out permits to companies. Step 3, the trading starts. If one company finds a cheap way to cut its pollution, it can sell its leftover permits to another company that's struggling. This rewards the innovators. And then, the most important part, over time, the government lowers the cap, forcing the entire system to get cleaner.
And you know what? These policies can really work. A perfect example of command and control is the U.S. Clean Air Act. By setting firm limits on nasty stuff like sulfur dioxide, it forced industries to clean up their act. And the result? The public health benefits, all those externalities we were now avoiding, were way, way bigger than the cost to industry. It was proof that smart regulation can create a ton of value.
Now, if you zoom out to the global scale, you get the Paris Agreement. It's a really fascinating what they call bottom-up approach. Instead of some global authority laying down the law, nearly every single country sets its own targets, their nationally determined contributions, or NDCs. The idea is to build a collective sense of ambition, but of course, its success completely depends on each country actually doing what it promised to do.
But here's the thing. All of these policies, as good as they might be, are essentially just patches on our current system. They lead us to a much deeper, more profound question. Are we just putting Band-Aids on a model that's fundamentally broken? And that brings us to our final section, rethinking what progress itself even means.
And here it is, the central tension of our time. Our entire economic system is built on the idea of infinite, endless growth. But we live on a planet with a finite amount of resources and a finite capacity to absorb all our waste. I mean, at some point, those two things are just fundamentally in conflict.
This tension is captured perfectly in how we measure success. Our main yardstick is GDP, which just adds up all economic activity. It's a measure of quantity. So under GDP, a massive oil spill and the billion-dollar cleanup that follows both make the economy grow. It's crazy, right? Alternatives like the Genuine Progress Indicator, or GPI, start with GDP but then subtract the costs of things like pollution and resource depletion. It's a total shift from asking how much stuff did we make to asking are we actually better off?
And this kind of thinking has sparked some really radical, fascinating new ideas. You have the steady state economy, which argues the goal shouldn't be endless growth, but stability. You have degrowth, which suggests a planned, fair reduction in consumption in rich countries. And then there's donut economics, which tries to find that sweet spot where we meet everyone's basic needs without destroying the planet's life support systems.
And that really is the ultimate question for our time, isn't it? If the dream of endless growth on a finite planet is just that, a dream, then what should we be aiming for instead? What should progress actually look like in the 21st century? The answer we come up with will define everything about our future.